What's up, guys? Edrone here, and today we're going to be installing our camera for our part 7 of our Budget Basher Race Drone series, which is the last build video. Stay tuned. Went ahead and went with something a little different this time. You know me, traditionally, I'm a run cam camera type of guy, but I decided to try this new Foxeer Falcor FPV camera. It's brand new, it just came out, and look at the specs on this thing. It's got 1200 TVL, it's got the wide dynamic range, it is switchable from 4:3 aspect ratio to 16:9, and it's got a wide voltage input as well, 5 volt all the way to 40 volt, and it is a CMOS sensor. It is NTSC and PAL compatible, 2.5 millimeter lens, and it also has OSD, which I won't be using because I have the Betaflight OSD. And you can see right here, I got it in the blue, which is going to match the Budget Basher Race Drone perfectly. Let's go ahead and get this box open. They have a nice little presentation here. Foxeer for now. So I definitely like the packaging. Looks very professional and kind of like, I don't know, kind of like graffiti type. It just looks kind of pretty cool looking. I like that. So yeah, you know me, I normally do run cam, but I decided, you know what, I saw this camera and I'm like, man, you know what, this thing looks pretty awesome. And for the price, I'll pop the price right up here. It's actually really quite affordable, and it's definitely in the run cam territory. All right, let's see what we got here. Got a nice little card. Well, look at the presentation on this. Wow, that blue is going to just pop on this race drone. Wow, the blue is like a candy blue. It looks real nice. So we have a little card here, and they have their website on here. That's trying to let you know that they have excellent customer support. So that's awesome. Put that off to the side. Wow, look at this camera. It's got a nice foam protection in here. Let's go ahead and pull this bad boy out. There we go. This is the Foxeer Falcor. This thing looks awesome. I love the blue. It's got a nice, look at that lens on that. 2.5 millimeter. Looks very, very nice. I think this camera is going to just be phenomenal on this build. And I traditionally am a run cam fan, but when I saw this camera, I saw a couple reviews, and I said, man, you know, this thing looks insane, and it runs the same type of pin connection as the run cam. It does have a 4-pin connector here, which we have our ground, our video, and voltage. And I'm going to have to see what V-Sen is. Maybe that's like sensor? V-sensor? Maybe a sensor for voltage. Yeah, voltage sensor. So that's what that is for your OSD. But like I said, I'm probably not going to be using the OSD in this particular camera, as I have a OSD in my flight controller already. Let's go ahead and see what else is in here. You get a nice... I mean, their packaging is just phenomenal. I mean, look at this. This is nice, professionally packaged here. It looks really nice. You get your little instruction booklet here. It has all your settings here, your main menu, how you change your modes. This is for the Falcor and the Falcor Micro. Very easy to read, very clear. So that's very, very nice. So far, I am liking this camera and the packaging. It is really professional. Let's go ahead and pull this tab up here. And that's it for the box. We have a nice neat box right here. And look at this. It's got everything nice and neat tucked in here. I like the way they do this. So you have your little mounting bracket, which we won't be using this. I already have a bracket for this frame. And here's our little spacer nuts, a couple of screws, extra screws. Can always use that stuff. Extra hardware pack there. And here's our cables. One cable. Here is another cable. And here is our little on-screen display, little toggle switch. You just plug that in the camera, and you can just kind of cycle through. And we've all seen these before with RunCam, but they give you the same thing. So it's nice that you have that option to change your OSD settings. So if you want to turn the settings off or change some of the settings, you can do that. So it's a nice option to have. So we're going to be wiring up this camera in this video, and it's nice they actually give you two wire harnesses. They're exactly the same from what I can tell, but it's nice that they give you two in case you mess up one or tear up one, you have a spare. So nice to give you two wire harnesses, and you'll see on one end you have a smaller connector, and this one here I believe plugs right into the camera. Yep. So the smaller end plugs right into the camera. This larger end, some VTXs may actually have a spot for you to plug this in, so you can just wire it right directly to your VTX and power it that way. So whether you want to plug this into your VTX if it's compatible, or plug it into your flight controller, you have that option. This flight controller is the Holybro Kakute V2. It is not all-in-one. It is not set up to plug and play, so we will have to cut this one end off and solder it up. But that's no big deal. So what we'll do is we'll cut this end off, and we'll solder up all these wires. You can see you have your voltage. It's right in line with the wires. So red for your voltage, black for your ground, yellow for your video, and then you also have a light pink wire for your voltage sensor, which I'm not going to be using that. Like I said, I have voltage and all that set up in my flight controller with the OSD. So that's just one extra wire we don't need to worry about. Now in this particular build, it is extremely tight. There is not a lot of real estate. So you can see we're going to put the camera right about where it's going to go in the build, which is right about here. And you can see we only need enough wire to get to about here. So I'm going to leave myself a little bit of extra slack, and we're going to go ahead and cut that off just in case you ever have to pull the camera out. You know, you want to have a little bit of extra slack. So we'll go right about there, and we're going to go ahead and snip these wires off. There you go. Went ahead and snip the wires off, and you can see we've got plenty of extra wire here to solder up. We're actually going to have, you know, a little bit of extra, but that's a good thing. You want to have a little bit of extra, so if you ever have to pull the camera off or readjust, you know, you're not sitting here tugging and risk pulling a wire off the solder pad. So you can see there we got plenty of wire to be able to pull the camera out that far if we need to. But you can see this is a extremely tight build. You know, even by the time I get these little side brackets in that hold the camera in place, I mean, it is just extremely tight. Looking back at it now, I probably should have went with a micro size camera, just because there's just not a lot of room on this build for a full size camera. But we got this one now. We're going to make it work. It will work. It's just going to be very tight. Since I'm not actually going to be using the voltage sensor wire, I'm just going to snip it off. And, you know, worst comes to worst, I do have a whole nother cable, because they give you two in the kit. So you have a whole other cable in case you need it. But I'm not going to be using the voltage sensor on this particular camera. I'm going to be using the voltage in my on-screen display on my flight controller. Our red wire is going to go to the VBAT, same as the VTX. Our yellow wire is going to go to VI, which is video in. And then our black is going to go to the same ground as the VTX as well. Now we're going to go ahead and pre-tin these pads, and it's going to be extremely tight and hard to show you on camera because it's so tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-tin the pads off camera, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like when we're all done. That was extremely tedious, but we got it. We got it soldered up, and we got it twisted so it looks nice and neat. You see the camera wire all ready to go. That's one thing I do not like about this flight controller, is the extremely small soldering pads that you have to work with when you have to get all these wires on here. I'm used to the Maytech F405 has a lot. It feels like the pads are a little bit larger anyway, but you can see you have all these wires, you know, coming in the same area, and it's very difficult to not bridge the soldering pads. So you have to definitely use a fine point soldering tip and just take your time, But yeah, that if I had to say one thing I don't like about this Holybro Kakute all-in-one is just the limited, the size of the solder pads is definitely not. It makes it challenging for sure. And I have a little bit of bonus content for you in this video. There is one more thing I forgot. I have to solder up real quick, and that is the buzzer. The buzzer is going to be the easiest component to solder on this build. You have your buzzer negative, and then 5-volt for your positive for your buzzer. The buzzer I actually got from Rotor Riot. It is a mini micro buzzer. This thing is tiny, and it barely weighs anything. So look at the size of this little guy. This thing is extremely tiny, and like it's not going to be hard at all to put this on the build whatsoever. It's a very small little micro buzzer, and it'll just sit here on the build. And we'll have this coming out of the rear, so we'll secure it either with some double-sided tape or maybe like a little zip tie. Come right out the back here, have a little buzzer. Go ahead and pre-tin our buzzer negative pad and our 5-volt pad for the power in for the buzzer. There's negative. And there's our positive. Don't need much solder at all. This wire is very small. Wires, I'm not going to cut any of these wires off. And we're going to just add a little bit of fresh solder to this wire. Get that nice fresh solder on there. It did come pre-tinned from the factory, but it's always a good idea to add some fresh solder on there. Basically, we're wanting the wires to come out of the rear, so we're going to want to have our wires soldered on from this side, not this side. So we'll go ahead and take our negative wire here. Definitely recommend using tweezers when soldering small items like this, small wires. But here's our negative. Go ahead and get this. You just have to touch just barely to get that solder to melt. Same thing with the positive, 5-volt. Careful to not let them bridge. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and take the camera. I'm going to go ahead and get the brackets mounted on the camera, and then we'll stick the camera down in there, get it lined up, and then we can go ahead and get our top plate on and finish up a little bit of little loose ends, getting the buzzer connected, getting our VTX connected with the pigtail and the SMA and the antenna, and then we're just about done. Then we'll be able to power this thing up, make sure we don't catch on fire. Well, we got her in there, guys. Man, this was a very, very difficult build. This camera barely fits in there. I was able to get it in there and get a little bit of up tilt, but I can't go much more than that, just because it's so tight that if you see right back here, the top of the camera is almost touching against this this top board where my VTX is. So this was a extremely tight build. It looks really good. I think that should be a decent amount of up tilt for me until I get better. And then I don't know what I'm going to do if I need more up tilt, because you can see right here it's wedged in between these two pillars, and the lens is so wide that it really won't go up hardly. Oh, I got a little bit more out of it. That's about all you're going to get max up tilt. I guess that's a decent amount. But the only thing I'm worried about that now is if I'm going to have the, see, it's pushed the standoff out of the way. So yeah, that's not going to work. So we need to lower this back down. But this is a very, very tight build. You see I got the battery mounted. This was probably the most difficult build I've had. Absolutely. This right here took me a little bit of time also. I mounted the FR Sky antennas coming off with some zip ties coming off the arms here. You know, I mean, it's not the prettiest looking job, but it'll do the trick, and it should keep them, you know, out of the prop line so they don't get cut. Just got to keep an eye on it, but I got some really sturdy zip ties on there to hold these antenna tubes. But yeah, there you go. So got the top plate on. The only thing left to do now is take the pigtail for the VTX and get it hooked up right here. And then we have to get our buzzer. I'm actually thinking about mounting the buzzer if I have enough wire. Yeah, I do. Right behind the VTX, right here on top. And just use a little bit of double-sided sticky tape and stick that down right there. It's a perfect spot for this little micro buzzer. I think that'll work real good. So yeah, I'll have the buzzer sitting right here at the back. And then I'll have the pigtail coming straight up through here with a little stubby antenna. Since I'm bottom mounting my battery, should be work very well with a stubby on the top here. So yeah, this thing's coming together. We're going to go ahead and get ready to check it with a multimeter. Make sure that we don't have any bad connections or any you know, any soldering joints that are shorted out or anything like that. Definitely want to check all our connections, make sure that we don't have any continuity. And then once we do that, I'll go ahead and power it up for the first time. We'll hook the smoke stopper up to it, and hopefully it'll power up and everything will be fine. Here goes nothing, guys. Getting ready to fire this thing up. We got our smoke stopper here with our fuse. So hopefully everything works okay. I've got to get another multimeter, or at least another battery for my multimeter. It's not working, so I was not able to check for continuity. But the good news is, if we do have a short circuit, this fuse is going to blow before anything actually burns up on the quad. So cross your fingers, and here we go. Got the VTX over here with the stubby FPV antenna plugged in. Everything's wired up. Woo! This is always a nerve-wracking thing anytime you build a quad. Here we go, guys. Getting ready to plug it in. The first time ever the Budget Basher has been plugged in to battery power. No turning back now. No smoke. The fuse did not blow. I think we actually have success. Wow. I really like the LEDs on these ESCs. They look awesome. Wow. And they're blue. Go figure. It goes with the whole theme of the drone. Wow. Let me get a zoom in for you. Look at this. Man, is she beautiful when she's lit up. Wow. Everything looks good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to power up my my goggles and see what this camera looks like. See if I can find the channel we're on. I'm going to make sure I record the DVR so you guys can see the quality of this camera. Got my Fat Sharks here. Go ahead and see if we can't get some video here. Man, is that camera crystal clear. Holy cow. I'll have to go into the settings and see if it's 16 by 9 or 4 by 3. It looks like it's set up in 4 by 3. But man, is that clear. Let me give you a little walk around. Man, is this exciting. Actually powered up. Yeah, I've got a crystal clear. Let me just pick this up ever so gently. But man, look at that camera. I mean, that is clear. Wow. Look at that. That is a pretty daggone clear image right there. Not complaining about that whatsoever. I mean, this is obviously at night too. I'm sure the daylight looks way better. Look how clear that is. Nice. Definitely liking that. Excuse my mess here in my shop. I've got quite a mess going on right now. Trying to get all this situated. Well, there you have it. Everything worked great. The camera's working. The VTX is working. The only thing I haven't tested out yet is the receiver. But we're going to do that in a separate video because this was the final part of the build video. So now that the building's done, we're going to get into programming. And in the next video, we will cover binding the receiver to the Tyrannus QX7. And then we'll go ahead and do another video on programming the ESCs. And then we will do, the last video will be the Betaflight setup. And then we're going to take this thing out for the maiden flight. And I cannot wait. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe. And this is the final build video. Stay tuned for the Budget Basher program series coming up next. Thanks so much, guys. Edrone out.